Evidence before the Royal Commission on Indian Currency and Finance. Part 6. Sir Norcott Warren. Am I to understand from the latter part of paragraph 8 of your memorandum that you are inclined to rate of 1 shilling 6 times rather than 1 shilling 4 times? I confess predilection in favor of 1 shilling 6 times. Sir Alexander Murray. There is one point, Dr. Ambedkar, which you referred to in answer to some questions put to you by the chairman. You seem to suggest the government of India was somehow or other prepared to go on coining rupees simply in order that they make a profit between the bullion value and token value of the rupee. I want to know what you are referring to exactly. I am referring to this. It is a historical bitter thing. When the government of India, for instance, introduced reforms suggested by the Fowler Committee, they felt that for a large circulation of the rupee, they had not any reserve that the Fowler Committee in paragraph 60 of their report suggested that the government coined rupees and kept profit to itself. That profit should be utilized as a reserve. Sir Edward Law, who came on the scene in 1901, the period from which the coinage of rupees commenced, also felt that the value of rupees was so large that some amount of reserve was necessary, and I think he went on coining rupees surely because he felt that the reserve was wanted and the reserve could not be had in any other way except by coining rupees. You only think that? No, my point is this. I have read the dispatch very closely, and I feel that if Sir Edward Law had disclosed that the rupee was coined to a premium because people did not want gold or any other thing to use in currency, then I could have understood that the rupee was coined in answer to the demand of the people. But there is not a single thing to that effect to be found in the dispatch. He simply says that when we introduced reforms, we did not take into account paragraph 60 of the Fowler Committee's report. But he also, I think, in that dispatch to which you refer, laid down that there ought to be a gold reserve which estimated at 7 millions or something like that. Against this, you say that he was issuing rupees. Quite so. Gold standard reserve is kept in gold. I say no reserve was wanted. You make a general statement here, Dr. Ambedkar. Unfortunately, there is abundant proof of such perversion in the history of the currency system in India. Already we have had foolish administrators who had been obsessed with the idea that a reserve was a very essential thing and who had therefore gone on issuing currency without any consideration but for augmenting the reserve. And now you are repeating it to the chairman. I have used a much milder expression than that used by Professor Cannon himself in his book. But is it not the case that in 1895 that was actually suggested by a well-known Bombay financier and turned down by the finance minister at the time? I find that in the dispatch. One moment. In your book, you actually give the name of the Bombay financier who suggested it, and you give the name of the finance minister of the government of India who turned it down. Yes. Then in your book, you also give the name of a well-known politician who, as recently as 1907, 1908, suggested the same thing, and again it was turned down by the government of India, and as recently as 1919, you give a reference to another well-known economist. Then why do you repeat the statement to the chairman that the administrators of the government of India have not thrown overboard or turned down the suggestion when, as a matter of fact, you know that the administrators of the government of India have turned it down repeatedly when it has been put forward by well-known Indian financiers? My reply to that is this, that somehow if you read the speeches in the budget delivered by every finance minister, for instance, I forget the names now, gentlemen who preceded Sir Edward Law, I think I can cite instances. Sir James Westland and Sir Clinton Dawkins, but they never agreed with that. No, it was suggested by an Indian to Westland who turned it down and again to Dawkins who turned it down. With due respect to your interpretation, Sir Edward Law did say that there should be gold standard sufficient to back all the rupees and the notes. I do not deny that, but I simply say this, that other financiers has stated that no reserve was wanted and the rupee would maintain itself, and Sir Edward Law stated the reserve was wanted and he coined rupees because he wanted the reserve. In fact, I have paid sufficient compliments to the training and notions of Westland and Dawkins for turning down the proposals. I say they were right and Sir Edward Law was certainly wrong. Sir Edward Law did not say that he coined rupees in order to provide the reserve. He said that he should hold it as a backing against the issue. It is true, it is you that put in the interpretation that he did coin rupees for the other purpose. He says that in the dispatch. Before the Fowler Committee, there were sufficient proposals of having a gold reserve, and the committee found that they were very costly, but slightly hinted that if a reserve was wanted, it might be had by coining rupees. The two gentlemen who preceded Sir Edward Law did not think it was necessary, but Sir Edward Law said it was necessary and coined rupees. I am not making a general charge. I have given praise, but it is due. I can also give you the reference. I can verify all your references. What do you want to find there? That although the recommendation of the Fowler Committee was there that the government of India could provide itself with gold reserve by coining rupees, Westland and Dawkins refused to pay any heed to that proposition because they firmly believed that the gold reserve was not necessary and that the rupee being limited in quantity, it could maintain itself. But Sir Edward Law, when he became finance minister, felt that a reserve was necessary. Westland was the finance minister before ever the Fowler Committee reported. I think he was away when the recommendations were brought into operation, and Dawkins was the member in office when the Fowler Committee reported. But both of them turned down the suggestion which came from the Indian politicians. There is no difference of opinion on that point. The only difference is that you are imputing to Sir Edward Law that he coined rupees in order to create a reserve. I say he did not. That in the actual dispatch he said that there was a gold reserve, I think, of 7 millions. If so, there is a difference between us. Chairman, I cannot see what conceivable advantage it can be to anybody to increase a reserve for the fun of the thing. Exactly, and people are under very big notions that the reserve is wanted and without a reserve a currency cannot work. I think it is a very common superstition. It is there. Sir Alexander Murray, I will give you references. Page 276 to 278 of your book, The Problem of the Rupee. Yes, Westland was there and when the reforms were brought into being, page 276. What date was that? It is the budget speech of 1898-99 after the reforms were introduced. It was in 1894-95. No, Dawkins comes on the next page. My reference is to the financial statement for 1898 to 1899 at page 276. Then the passage from Sir Edward Law occurs on page 278. Will you excuse me for correcting you? You said your reference was to the budget speech of 1898 to 1899. As a matter of fact, the reference you have made is from the speech of 1894 to 95. He was also finance minister in 1899. The end.